Hi everyone! Welcome back to the MacGuffin tapes. I stole your lines.
We're here back with Ala to talk about Wes Anderson's filmography, his themes, his style. Because right now, his latest movie is out in cinemas, The Phoenician Scheme. Dario, unfortunately, is going undercover to get us some more intel on the movie and Wes Anderson, so he couldn't join us. But he is talking to us at the moment through a walkie-talkie and giving us the goods. Yeah, so where should we get started with Wes Anderson? I mean, I think you're a big fan.
Oh yeah, I think I definitely consider myself a fan. I actually looking at the filmography in preparation for our discussion today, I thought Wes Anderson is probably the one of the very few, if not the only director, whose whole filmography have I seen. So I saw every single movie of his, and I definitely count myself among his fans. So I think I will represent a certain demographic when I say that at some point my interest and my engagement in his art kind of waned. And today I guess we want to explore when that happened and why that might have happened. I mean, obviously why we are discussing it now today is because his latest film is out in the cinemas. It was just in Cannes, where it received very mixed reviews. And when I say mixed, I rather mean polarizing, because I sent you some articles that I saw, and it was like either 5 stars or no stars at all, which I found very interesting, because I don't know, if I've never seen the reviews on his movies before, and I don't know if that was always the case, because I know a few people that don't like Wes Anderson. So you would think that, you know, this quirky style and very particular very particular style, very particular production design, I guess you could say, would be everyone's thing, but clearly it is not. And a lot of criticism that I hear about his work is that it really lacks any substance. It lacks any story, really. But I tend to disagree with that. But I guess that's what we're talking about today.
Yeah, to ask you, I haven't seen all of his movies. I haven't seen the animated movies, and I just started watching Asteroid City in preparation for this as well. I haven't finished it yet. So yeah, for those people who are big on watching movies on one go, you can just throw me in the fire. But
that is
yeah,
me.
that's
I will
how
do it.
But yeah, I wanted to ask you, has this humor always been part of his style? I saw that his first movie is Bottle Rocket, which he wrote, I think, with Owen Wilson, and which was first a short film, and then they extended it to a feature film. But could you see his characteristic style in that movie already?
Oh yeah, I think you can definitely see kind of the beginning of the style already in the first film. But fun fact, actually, did you know that when Bottle Rocket first came out, Martin Scorsese basically proclaimed Wes Anderson as his heir because of the style and the theme of Bottle Rocket, which, not
Really?
looking at it now, is very funny. But like back then, I guess he thought, well, because the theme is kind of, it's about those brothers who are out of boredom, they just decide to rob or like steal something. I don't really remember the plot anymore so well, but I think what you definitely can see is the beginnings of what will become his signature style. So there are scenes where you already have those like very kind of
static frames.
static frames, symmetrical shots. So this, and also the color scheme, because I think the color scheme in Bottle Rocket, although it is not as strict and limited as it is in his future films, it's already kind of it already has some resemblance of that. So I think there the colors are red and green, and I think this will keep for a bit. So it's definitely still the case in Rushmore too. I think there's more blue as well, but I think he uses green and red a lot. And theme wise, I mean, I don't know. I would say that it is also kind of particular to his storytelling or his the themes that he chooses, because again, this is two adult men actually that behave like kids. So I told you, I when I was kind of making an overview of what we could talk about, I wrote the word kidulthood, which is I think exactly what describes it, because those are just adult people that behave like kids, and then you have kids that behave like adults, and that's I think what Wes Anderson usually has.
Before you introduced me, or we watched some of his other movies together. I mean, we've seen Rushmore. You can see, I think, last act they stage a play and they perform a play, and that was pretty much what he was doing in school, directing plays. And I think he mentioned that he also shot some stuff on that Super 8 camera. And yeah, I guess theater is something that he's really interested in. And just watching Asteroid City the other day, you can see that as well, that I think in his last couple of movies is where he includes sort of a narrator, or that talks about the setting of the scenes and the acts, or he makes that quite explicit also visually. Sometimes and at least in Asteroid City, he shows those title cards with, okay, this is act such and such, and scene so and so and so forth.
I would say this was not really introduced there, because the cards have always been there, I would say. And the narrator, I think as early as the Tenenbaums, the narrator is already present. So in the Tenenbaums, it was Alec Baldwin, I think, that was doing the narration. And then I'm not sure, I think probably also in Darjeeling that there's some form of narration, and definitely some narration in the Moonrise Kingdom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, didn't mean that he introduced the narrator in Asteroid City, but that you can see his influence from theater in Rushmore.
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess narrators, I think it's, thinking back, quite a lot of his movies have narrators, and I guess that's something that he has in common with Scorsese, because Scorsese in Goodfellas, for example, and The Wolf of Wall Street, they have these really famous narrators.
Yeah, but the characters themselves are actually telling the story, and here it's more like somebody else is telling you what's going on, or like kind of going through the story with you.
Yeah, exactly. I don't remember the actual narrative term when it's an out of play character narrating the.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, out of the plot character narrating the story. Yeah, and I think it's sometimes these characters in the story, sometimes not. I can't remember exactly now, but yeah, and that's I don't know what's the effect. It's sometimes, I guess, disconcerting or maybe weird sometimes. Like in Asteroid City, I think there's sort of two parallel stories. You have a story about Asteroid City, and then which is actually a play, and then you have the outer story, which is how this production got made and how they wrote it and so forth.
I think you probably have a better idea of what Asteroid City is about. I think I did my best to forget everything I saw. But yeah, I mean, I don't really remember it so well anymore. But wait a second, can we quickly go back to maybe the beginning?
Yeah.
So we were talking about Bottle Rocket, we were talking about Rushmore. Have you seen the Royal Tenenbaums?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I think the Royal Tenenbaums was actually the film that probably put Wes Anderson on the map, like for real this time. Not only as a Scorsese heir, but I think this is also the film that solidified a lot of his elements. And when you were talking about the school where they were shooting when they were shooting Rushmore, I think this is also one of those films where he draws a lot of inspiration from his own life. Not in the sense that he is a genius child, but in the sense of kind of absent parents or dysfunctional families. I mean, specifically, I think he comes from a family that split up. So his father, I think, left when he was a child, and I think this is kind of very visible in his work. At least that seems to be the theme that he explores a lot through his work. If we are talking about the substance, if we are talking about the themes, then this is probably one of the themes that is very much present throughout the films.
Well known and most liked movies. I was thinking, I don't know why.
You don't know why? You don't like it so much?
No, I like it, but maybe I don't have it that fresh in my memory, so that I could remember. But
I also think that, if you think about when they came out, Bottle Rocket and Rushmore, okay, they didn't receive as much of a buzz, I guess, or they were not received so well as then some of his later films. But the Royal Tenenbaums came in 2001. And if you think about it, 2001, so the early 2000s, is kind of a very interesting time for this film to be made, because it's the time of, more like kind of glossy blockbuster films. And then this film comes out and it looks completely different. It's like, has a very specific style. It's visually very different from what was made at that time. So I think it's only natural that it received an interest. It received some, critical acclaim, and generally was received well by the audiences who wanted to see this film. And this quirkiness of the film that then became like a trademark of Wes Anderson, that's what got established, I think, very well in this particular film. That was the first one that you watch and you're like, oh yeah, that's Wes Anderson. So you will never recognize it as anything else. If you watch Rushmore, if you know, you know, but if you don't, maybe you wouldn't necessarily say it's a Wes Anderson film, because at that time yet, it was not, I guess it was still kind of developing into the style that he will have.
the visuals, I mean, the colors. Well, I guess the colors in Tenenbaums are also a bit stronger, but I also remember the production design of the home of the family where they live in. Isn't it set in New York, I think?
I think so.
Yeah, so that house is very, I mean, that production design is amazing, like how they move around that house. And I guess, no, I was trying to think of why is it so relatable. I guess because it's the story of a family with their issues, and that's something that people can really relate to. And what's something sometimes difficult is his I guess some of his narrators have that or how the actors deliver their lines is very monotonous and without feeling, which is in contrast, I guess, to what's happening on their inside. Maybe saying that okay, they can't express their emotions or don't know how to express them, and yeah, I can also really relate to that. I can see that Wes Anderson, you mentioned he is sort of, or some of his characters are a bit of a geniuses, but yeah, I agree that in the sense that he's very absorbed in his own world and very creative and very passionate about what he does. And I think also a great quote or that I heard when watching some YouTube clips was by Bill Murray, who's in a lot of his films, and he said that yeah, well, he is like kind of in his dream world, and we get to be part of that, and you can totally see that he loves creating these worlds and being in them and getting lost in them. So I think that's sort of the genius aspect you mentioned.
Yeah, I think I agree. But maybe that's exactly what we're talking about today, because if you are living in your own world, then you may kind of get lost at some point.
Yeah, I think that's what you line out nicely is maybe his last couple of films, the sort of style is a bit more gets in front of the substance, or I don't know how to put it, but maybe what I realized watching Asteroid City, and then what's the movie we've seen together? It was The
The
French
French
Dispatch.
Dispatch. Yeah.
I mean, just in general, there's so much going on in the frame. There's so many, like in the background as well, in the front, but also like how the dialogue is written and how they deliver the speech. It's so much to absorb that I think Wes Anderson's movies are great on a second watch, maybe because at least for me, there's so much going on the first time you see them, and especially his last couple of films. That yeah, maybe that's why you can't get to the core of what he's trying to say, because I don't know. I mean, at least now for Asteroid City, I remember the same thing about the French Dispatch. That there's so many jokes and so much stuff happening at the same time and at such a quick pace, which is also, I guess, one of his other characteristics. That yeah, maybe that's why it's
Yeah.
hard to relate.
The thing is, you have to already hook someone for them to watch it twice. You know, you can't just expect that they will be like, "Oh, cool film, didn't understand everything, have to go back." If you didn't like it, you didn't like it. You know, I don't think I want to rewatch The French Dispatch, no matter how much substance is promised to me on a second watch, because I just didn't like the movie. And the same goes for Asteroid City.
Maybe it's also about the topics. I mean, Asteroid City feels a bit more like a, how to put it. It's not that relatable of a story, if you will, if you compare it to something like the Royal Tenenbaums or maybe Rushmore or yeah,
Yeah.
that maybe that's why you don't have that immediate connection. It's sort of a bit, I don't know, a play about, or a movie about a play about a play. So yeah.
Very Inception-esque.
Mhm.
I would say if we just again go back in time to the filmography, I would say that he had a very good run between the Royal Tenenbaums and the Grand Budapest Hotel. So that's been exactly 13 years of great films. I mean, Steve Zissou, I don't really remember the film so well. I watched it once and it was a very long time ago. I don't think I enjoyed it immensely. It was interesting. It was definitely very stylish in his very particular way. And yeah, of course, it had Bill Murray. So for me, I will watch that anytime. But maybe not Zissou. But then Darjeeling Limited, Fantastic Mr. Fox, Moonrise Kingdom, and the Grand Budapest Hotel, I think are definitely the films that he is praised most for. And of course, the Grand Budapest Hotel stands out. Not to me personally, because that's not my favorite Wes Anderson film, but apparently it is everybody else's. I actually saw a clip with somebody asking the audience of the Phoenician Scheme in Cannes what they thought about the film as they left the theater, and they were asking what is your favorite Wes Anderson film, and literally everybody said the Grand Budapest Hotel, until somebody, I think, said I love dogs. Somebody said I love dogs, and I was like, okay, maybe if that's the only one you've seen, or I don't know, you have to be very particular.
You're talking about what Dario's favorite.
Dario's favorite film is the Grand Budapest Hotel.
Yeah.
He confirms.
Yeah, I think probably mine as well. Although I remember that when we saw the French Dispatch together, that I also really enjoyed that one. Yeah.
Really? Okay.
Yours is yours the Darjeeling Limited?
Mine is the Darjeeling Limited, yeah. I would say my top three is probably the Darjeeling Limited, the Royal Tenenbaums, and then I would have to think, because actually I definitely like Fantastic Mr. Fox. We just literally actually rewatched it on Wednesday, just like that. I don't know, not because we had to talk about Wes Anderson today. And I actually do like Rushmore quite a bit. Or actually, I know now, it's going to be Moonrise Kingdom number 3. It's easy, actually. I forgot. Actually, it's super easy. I love Moonrise Kingdom. Moonrise Kingdom was actually also the first Wes Anderson film I saw.
So we saw together, probably Moonrise Kingdom is the one that I enjoyed the most. Yeah, that's really cool. But before we get to that, maybe you want to get more into detail a bit about the Darjeeling Limited. Why is that one so precious to you?
I really don't know. I think this was the film probably that got me acquainted with Wes Anderson's style, and I thought this was just genius. For me, I understand some people look at Wes Anderson's style and are like, yeah, whatever. For me, it was groundbreaking. I thought this looks amazing. The fact that he's so consistent with what he does, the camera movement, just the very strict symmetry that he has, and it just like adds to the overall quirkiness of the films. And then the characters. I mean, obviously, I like the story of this kind of dysfunctional family where brothers are close, but also there's this kind of rivalry going on. Or for me, I don't know, for you, obviously, as a kid from a big family, this is something you can relate to. I cannot. I'm an only child, so for me, I can only watch that somebody else do that and enjoy. Yeah, I thought it was just a beautiful, beautiful film. I guess what you can say is, at least the criticism I heard of this film is that it takes a rich country, like rich in terms of culture, of India, and then just turns it into a setting, and it doesn't really use the potential that it could. But I guess it's just not the point. It's just not the point, guys. And the point is just to show the relationship between the brothers, and then the relationship they had with their father and the mother. And I think this is, again, as I said, something that kind of pertains to his work and is still present at this point in time. That would be 2007.
So journey I read here on the Wikipedia page that they go through, and I think that's how I remember it mostly. Yeah, the sibling rivalry is not something that I can really relate to. I mean, with my siblings, we had a bit of a different relationship. But I wanted to say maybe some other characteristics or constants in this film is I see here that he wrote it with Jason Schwartzman, who is a frequent collaborator. And then the other thing is, I don't know, trains, I would say. because in
Trains.
the Grand Budapest Hotel, he also has some scenes happening in the train. So yeah,
I think it just really again adds to the fact that he creates those worlds that look like doll houses or miniatures or you know those train sets. Like it's just all kind of a game to him. We're all playing with the toys. We're all sitting in this kid's room and just like yeah, play with whatever is around.
yeah,
One time it's a dollhouse, like in the Royal Tenenbaums or in Zissou even, because there's like even a cut through this submarine, right, where you see kind of the view of like as if you're looking into a dollhouse. Or yeah, trains, like a train set.
it's a good point that it's sort of a dollhouse, and he also mentioned this in one of the clips I saw that he likes animation especially, and he well, like you mentioned, the Life Aquatic is I think animation, and then Fantastic Mr.
Life
Fox.
Aquatic is like, I mean, I don't think there is animation there. Is there? I don't think so. I think Mr. Fox was his first animation film,
Ah, sorry.
the stop motion film. And the same then for Isle of Dogs. So he has two
That's
animation films, which is
yeah.
also quite interesting for a fact that he originally is not a director that does that. Like he didn't make animation films. I think this compares a little bit to Tim Burton because he has both.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you could compare it a bit to Tim Burton. Yeah, because not many the directors do animation and live action, and but yeah, his I guess where he comes from, his approach, it's actually quite a bit similar to Tim Burton, like with the miniatures and sort of yeah that dollhouse you mentioned. But I just when you described the submarine, what I was thinking about is I don't know when I was a child there were these books about I don't know exactly what I can't give you an example, but where usually you would have like the depiction of a full house and then you could see every floor and something like I don't know, like the Wall-E books, for example, where you had a complete picture about a setting, about a house or something, and then you could see a lot of details. And I think lots of Wes Anderson's movies are a bit like that or have those kind of scenes.
So I think Tim Burton still had more connection to animation. He already made animation in the beginning of his career. And for Wes Anderson, I mean, I wouldn't call it a switch, but to Fantastic Mr. Fox happened because this was actually something that was a request. So he was appointed, I guess, to create this film, or somebody suggested that he does that. So it
Yeah,
was not his initiative. And actually, it makes complete sense that it would be a stop motion animation because it, again, is playing with dolls. It's playing with toys. It's like, it's just so Wes Anderson-y just in the fact that in the nature of this animation is not just drawing, you know?
yeah. But I read that this is actually based on a book, if I'm not mistaken,
Yeah,
or
this is Roald Dahl. Yeah.
Mhm. And that he read that book when he was a child and he got really captured by I think the digging of the tunnel he mentions at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've only seen clips of it, but what's also very characteristic is the fast-paced dialogue, I think, yeah.
Just maybe to say one last thing about the animation. Fantastic Mr. Fox was shot at a frame rate of 12 frames per second. The more typical frame rate would be 24 frames per second. What it does is it creates this kind of very jumpy animation, which makes it look a little bit artificial. It's not as smooth. And was a deliberate choice. And this is, I think, again, something that is very Wes Anderson-y. It doesn't have to be smooth. It doesn't have to be, very nice and polished. It has to be kind of a little broken so you can see its animation. And this is, again, like the quirkiness of the whole thing.
Yeah, because I was thinking about just now from as opposed to the camera movement in some of his movie, because the camera movement is usually quite smooth and it's very how to put it, very simple. I mean, the camera moves maybe from side to side, or it rotates or moves up and down. Like I think in Moonrise Kingdom, I think there's one shot of the house where the camera moves up and down.
Mm-hmm.
So that's usually quite smooth, and he uses that as a form of humor.
Mm-hmm.
And but yeah, I guess the jumpy one is sort of again adds to that humor, to that quirkiness, and that rhythm that he has.
Well, so shall we get to the last 10 years of Wes Anderson films?
Yeah, let's go ahead.
So while looking into the Phoenician Scheme, I saw somebody's article in which they said this is the best film, the best Wes Anderson film in the last 10 years. And that kind of made me think, so what was 10 years ago? And that was, of course, the Grand Budapest Hotel. I don't know if I would go as far as to say this is where Wes Anderson's career ended. The Grand Budapest, I mean, obviously the Grand Budapest was great, objectively speaking. And then after it, it was the Isle of Dogs, the French Dispatch, Asteroid City, Henry Sugar, which came kind of, I think it is a bunch of stories as far as I remember, and it came on Netflix. And then now it's the Phoenician Scheme. So I think I rather tend to agree that in the last 10 years, there was nothing of Wes Anderson that I particularly enjoyed. So I Love Dogs for me, I didn't care for it. I don't remember what it was. I forgot it as soon as I watched it, I feel like. The French Dispatch, I wish I could forget it, to be honest. I didn't like it really much. We watched it at the Zurich Film Festival, and I remember just physically feeling how Dario just wanted the movie to stop and he wanted to leave. And I think just like that transferred somehow to me as well. Asteroid City was also very forgettable. I didn't care for it either. It all still has the style. It all still has the visual tropes that are characteristic to Wes Anderson, but none of those things, as at least as far as I can tell or remember, really have the substance and the themes that were typical to him. So either he was done exploring the dysfunctional families, absent parents, adults that haven't grown up, and kids that are grown up way too much for their age. Or he just doesn't know what to do next and hasn't found anything that would be interesting to him and would capture the audience just as much.
Sign of getting older, and then that he wants to talk about new things, and I guess he maybe feels that he dealt and talked and filmed a lot about families and dysfunctional families and kids. So that's maybe yeah, I was thinking that maybe I haven't seen Isle of Dogs, but from the French Dispatch onward, that is sort of a new phase. Well, we still have to see the Phoenician Scheme, but I'll talk about more that well, in a second. But I was thinking, yeah, why? I mean, why is Moonrise Kingdom and the Grand Budapest Hotel so good, I guess, or so well liked? And I mean, me personally, for Moonrise Kingdom, it's I can really relate to, like you said, the kids, how did you call them,
The kids
the
that
smart,
are way too grown up for their age, I guess. I mean, they
yeah,
are not really. They're still kids, but obviously the style with which he films that makes them look like they are way too adult, just in the way that they talk, more so than in the way that they behave.
yeah, yeah. It's true that maybe the way the kids talk, especially in Moonrise Kingdom, is a very adult way, but I think they're very smart, the kids, in the way that they are aware of their feelings, or they're very blunt about them, and maybe
Mm.
the adults are not as much. So something that's something that I can really relate to. I always think that, thinking back, I think, oh, I was a lot smarter when I was younger, or when I was a kid, or it was so much simpler. I mean, a simpler
Mm-hmm.
way of viewing the things, I guess, but
Mm-hmm.
in some way, I guess also truer. Um, yeah, I mean that's why I could personally relate to Moonrise Kingdom, to the kids, and I guess sort of that, is it a camp story? I mean the camping
Yeah.
part, that's
Yeah.
also very fun, I think. Yeah.
So for the Phoenician scheme, what I think I saw people criticize the most again is that Wes Anderson kind of became a caricature of himself, in the sense that it's not really at all about the plot, it's not about the story, this all doesn't matter. What matters is the picture. And at this point, um, we live in a world that is like already past TikTok trends and TikTok filters and AI filters that create a Wes Anderson-y film or trailer or video or whatever else, you know? So on Instagram, this is there was a tag, or still is a tag, that is called accidentally Wes Anderson. And again, this is very much about the style, right? So everybody knows the style, but not everybody knows the themes. Are the themes even still there? And this is kind of what I'm interested to find out and watch this film and see whether it's still just the style, or whether there is some substance to it, some maybe change to the usual narrative, to the usual themes of Wes Anderson. I mean, for me, the topic of kidulthood, of absent parents, this doesn't get old, I think. This is still interesting. I would still be interested to watch this. Maybe not everybody would, but I don't know. I think this is a topic that you can draw from, maybe not infinitely, but there is always something to talk about. And yeah, I doubt that this is the topic of the Phoenician scheme. So for me personally, if I have to kind of guess whether I will like the film or not, I think I will probably have a similar reaction to it, or I expect to have a similar reaction as to the French Dispatch.
Yeah. See anything about the Phoenician scheme yet, but yeah, maybe what I was thinking, that in this latest phase from the French, I would say from probably the French Dispatch onward, he is, I guess, getting a bit more obsessed on the visual side with
Mm-hmm.
building these worlds, and the details and the looks. And like I said, the pictures are so full,
Mm-hmm.
and he's creating these vignettes always that are,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, there's so much going on.
Yeah,
So
I think it's almost like an overload, kind of like an aesthetic overload at this
yeah,
point, because it's, again, as I said, it's kind of almost like a parody of himself, where he doesn't create a Wes Anderson film, he just create a Wes Anderson-esque clip or a video, you know? There's no story to it, there's just the visuals.
well, I was thinking that maybe that one of the themes that I could think of from the French Dispatch, and also the short stories, the Henry Sugar short
Mm-hmm.
stories, um, was that, I don't know, maybe it's a bit simple, but bringing sort of joy to the world and spreading kindness to the world maybe is one of the themes. Because if I remember correctly, in the French Dispatch, it was about this newspaper, which talked about different stories going on in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and I think one of how I remember is bringing good news to the world. And I think one of the stories about Henry Sugar, it was the one with Benedict Cumberbatch, where he sort of develops these powers and then he with the people. So maybe that's one of the themes to explore. I think you really have to dig for the themes now. They are not so how to put it, they're not so directly uh,
Easily
sent to you.
visible.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
easily visible. Yeah, and yeah, maybe I was thinking about the Grand Budapest Hotel because why was that relatable? I mean, maybe I guess why it was relatable was sort of the sadness, I guess, that made it relatable to me. I mean, these you could feel the sadness about these characters, but it was sort of yeah, it was sort of hidden as well, but that's what made that movie relatable as well, I guess. Yeah.
Hmm. Also, I think what he overloads on, it's kind of funny that I would even say that because I'm usually a fan of that, but I feel like there is a lot of people in his films in the sense that the cast, it's just, you're basically starstruck when you watch his films because the cast is huge and they're all awesome actors. But because the film doesn't have enough space for all of those characters, they just become cameos. And I think where you could see it for the first time was actually the Grand Budapest Hotel. At least I think, because there is a lot of characters that just appear for a brief moment and then they're gone and then you never see them again. I mean, kind of Bill Murray is more or less always the case that Bill Murray is a cameo, at least a cameo in Wes Anderson films. But I think this is where he kind of goes already way too far with this. This was definitely the case in the French Dispatch because there the amount of characters was just insane. And you had to follow all of them, and you don't get enough time to bond with any of them and to care for any of them. I feel this is kind of an issue, and it seems to me that the Phoenician Scheme still kind of has the same problem.
It's true that of actors, well-known actors that participate in his latest projects, and yeah, it is sort of kind of an overload. Maybe the issue, like you said, is that we don't get to spend that much time with them. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I guess it's on the other hand, it's always very noticeable that these characters stick in your mind, or at the present moment, it's oh, okay, wow, look at this character, look at this actor, wow, this is something different and new. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
maybe on the other hand, what gets lost is, yeah, I guess you don't have, maybe that's the thing, you don't have a main character anymore in that much in the latest movies that you can follow. I mean, in the Grand Budapest Hotel, we had Ralph Fiennes and I forgot the other actor who,
Monsieur Gustave and Zero.
yeah, so those are really fun. And in Moonrise Kingdom, we had the kids and Bottle Rocket. I guess it's the two brothers. Rushmore, we had Jason Schwartzman's character.
The Royal Tenenbaums, well, I think it would mostly be Luke Wilson's character, but I guess it's kind of all of them, all of the three kids.
Yeah, so I guess he now is taking a more, I don't know, societal approach, if you will, and going back to what I was saying, that he is just not looking about his personal things, but how he maybe interacts with society, or how looking as a whole and how he can help, and what drives us as a community, I guess. Yeah.
I mean, obviously for us it's too early to say because we haven't seen the Phoenician Scheme yet, but I think we are kind of getting a bit tired of just seeing the visual aspect of Wes Anderson, and we would like to see more substance and more depth to the stories, also more emotional depth because yeah, I think if you watch films like Moonrise Kingdom or The Royal Tenenbaums, even if you can't really relate to everything, I think you will at least feel the emotional impact of the stories. And this is definitely something that is missing for me personally from the latest films. As much as it's great to see the beautiful style. I think that just got a little old at some point. I think the topic or the question that we were trying to explore today is whether Wes Anderson's work overall is on the decline, and this is probably not the case yet. I mean, the latest films were not bad per se; they were just kind of uninteresting. So I guess we can call it a plateau for now. But I just would like to see something else, and I would love for Wes Anderson to find what he can talk about next and what story he can bring to us next in his usual style, but so that there is something else that we can draw from it, not just the visuals.
To switch up his style at this point is going to be difficult.
I don't even want him to switch. Like, I love the style.
Well, yeah, I guess his style is his thing. I mean,
Yeah,
he
it's
has
definitely
done
his trademark, right?
he has done animation like we discussed, but maybe he could try to exploring other genres that could be interesting. But yeah, I mean, his style, I think I also read his at least his cinematographer. There's one collaborator who did most of his films together with him, and I'm guessing that his production designer is the same thing. Huh? So because, like we said, the sets are always amazing, the amount of details, and also the costume. He's also someone who is really into costumes and colors and details about the costumes. But I agree with you that I would I would say that the films lack depth. I mean, they are very deep, but I would like to also have that. How did you say it? The emotional impact, or that he gives us a more of a window into his stories, sort of a vehicle, maybe a character, or something that we can latch onto, or that leads us into his worlds, because it's in the last movies, it's hard to get through that wall of his style and his and all those details and worlds he builds. It's hard to get into them sometimes because, I mean, his movies are also very fast. So that's, I guess, his rhythm is so fast that maybe that's also something that makes it difficult to get into it, because it's an overload, like we said.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think this was fun. This gave me a lot to think about, and I'm going to finish watching Asteroid City and maybe going back to some of the older movies before watching the Phoenician Scheme, and hopefully by then Dario will be back from his undercover mission.
Undercover operation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely intend to watch it soon. So maybe we can talk about it next. We will see.
hmm So thank you for listening to the MacGuffin tapes, and catch you next time.
Bye.